Hello, and welcome to the Will Leitch Show. I am the aforementioned Will Leitch, and I thank you for spending part of your day with me. Today's show is about being an outsider. Everyone considers themselves an outsider, and no one considers themselves an insider. You take the swampiest lobbyist in Washington, the one who does nothing but host cocktail parties for Capitol Hill staffers, and I guarantee you that that person thinks of himself as an outsider. Everyone I ever talked to at ESPN, which is as powerful an insider media presence as there has ever been in the history of sports, thinks of themselves not as the empire, but as the rebellion. Heck, I am talking to you from Sports Illustrated, the most venerable sports magazine of our lifetime, and I don't think I'm any more an insider than any of you watching, though of course I surely am. My guest today is Bassem Youssef, the famed Jon Stewart of Egypt, the man who was kicked out of his country for doing satire. He has a podcast called Remade in America, which is focused specifically on being an outsider, which of course he is. He is a man outside of his country, a man trying to break through and change minds and hearts. But of course, to do that, you kind of really can't be an outsider. Youssef, like all of us, is trying to break in. You can't do anything from the outside because that's why you're an outsider. Youssef has more than 10 million Twitter followers. That sounds like an insider to me. The difference is between emotional truths and actual truths. None of us feel like insiders because the world is something that happens out there, outside of us. To you, I'm a guy you're watching on TV right now. But to me, you're the whole rest of the world. We are by definition outsiders to ourselves, but insiders to each other. Everyone considers the rest of the world supporting characters to our own personal story, and the rest of the world a place separate from ourselves. We all feel like outsiders, even if we aren't one. Not every club will always have us as a member. Thus, we're all on the outside, looking in. No matter how powerful a person becomes, they will always feel like an outsider because everyone's success story is unlikely and surprising to them. Everybody feels like they started at the bottom, and now they're here. That's why even the Patriots play the nobody respected us card. This explains all kinds of aspects of human behavior, and sometimes in a way that can be equalizing, even encouraging. Everybody feels like they've rushed the stage, whether they have or they haven't, which means everyone is kind of miserable in the same way. Kings think they're outsiders, presidents think they're outsiders, garbage men think they're outsiders, and they're all equally right and equally wrong. So keep that in mind when an athlete bangs his chest after a victory and says he's the greatest. He's not saying that for your benefit. He's saying that for himself. We all need to feel like we belong, and we never will. We are a planet of outsiders. It is our signature trait. Today's guest is known to many as the, quote, Egyptian Jon Stewart, but I know him as the host of the excellent Remade in America podcast and a guy who could do heart surgery right here, right now, if we needed him. Please welcome Bassem Youssef. Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please sit.
Thank you.
I will not actually request. Could you actually, if I needed, if I just right over right now?
I will call 911.
You would call? Yeah, that's probably.
That's the safest call.
That's the safe call. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, until they got here. I mean, I would do that if you did that. But that would be the extent of my utilities. So we do a little theme on each show, and I'm kind of curious. You talked about on one of your podcasts, several actually, about the idea of being an outsider. Particularly, you've been in Los Angeles now for 2 years as an outsider, as someone that feels outsider. Both, I guess it was well in Egypt as well as here. Do you want to be more inside, or do you feel like comfortable in your place as like being a little bit on the outside?
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, the idea of the whole show, first they said, all right, we want to have a show about immigrants. And I said, like, I don't want to do another show about immigrants.
Right.
I feel like the whole idea about an immigrant, that they feel it, like an outsider. But I believe that there are a lot of people here, Americans, white Americans, who were born here, who still feel an outsider. And I believe also that people who are successful, they had to actually struggle on the outside for a long time because they had to struggle against certain values that was imposed by them or by society or religion or politics, and they had to fight against that. So I find that the people who are the most successful, who had to fight the most and struggle the most against these narratives and these powers against them. So that's why on our show we have someone like Maz Jobrani, who is an Iranian comedian, but we also have Carmen Esposito, who are white American, but she's a lesbian comedian. We have Medina Hosa, who is like a Latina NPR host. All of these people had like their own experience on the outside. So I don't think the whole idea about like being wanted to be on the inside is like being accepted even if you are on the outside, not having to to suffer for that. Breed Barara, one of my latest shows one of my latest guests on the show, he talks about like how he is like a young kid. He had to explain his name, that this is actually an actual name, not Emil. Right. And this is what fascinates me, bringing people's stories through this podcast, and a lot of people actually relate to it. I get messages from immigrants, from Americans, people who were born here, people who their parents born here, people who just moved here. So all of these experiences kind of resonates with those listeners.
Yeah, and I have to say, that's kind of one of the reasons that inspired me when I do this show after listening to the podcast is I find all of these things relatable. And I'm like, because everybody feels like everyone in their own way feels like an outsider, because the rest of the world exists outside of us. Like at one point, I was a 10-year-old kid in central Illinois in the middle of nowhere. And so the whole story of my life is like my story. And so therefore, if I get any sort of success, that doesn't make me feel like any more of an insider. It makes me feel like my outsiderness has finally been appreciated.
Exactly.
I suppose, as the case may be. Do you feel, as someone, again, who's felt like an outsider here, and I think back at home as well, does that ever go away? Is that a feeling that is there a hump that you get over? Like, think about, 10 years ago, before all of this stuff is going on, do you feel, if you had said, wow, in 10 years, I'm going to have my podcast where I'm going to talk to all these people and people are going to call me the Egyptian Jon Stewart, I'll totally feel like less of an outsider then? Or is there ever a point where that actually happens?
No, I think you always have this feeling because you always want to achieve something bigger. And sometimes you want to, like people who are more ambitious will go to more ambitious targets that people tell them always, you can't do that. You can't make that. So I'm here trying to reinvent my career in English, in a different language, different country, different culture, different audience. I'm trying to appeal for those people. So I'm definitely an outsider.
Oh,
They will always,
your bona fides are
they will always look at me as someone who's coming from the outside. And I just wanted to make this more of an interesting experience for them to listen to and maybe appreciate.
So you have like full on reinvention, like you were like you've done like a comedy, like you've done like a residence, you've done like, do you feel progress? Like, do you feel like since you started, like, I mean, this is obviously for maybe not the most ideal reasons, an entirely new start for you, an entirely new place, and starting from an entirely, like, there are starving 23-year-olds in Los Angeles that came out there to try to make it. Do you see progress? Do you have like little measurables where you're like, okay, when I get here, I'll be there? Or do you feel like everything is kind of a bonus right now?
Well, I do feel progress in the way that I'm more comfortable with how I'm expressing myself in comedy, because comedy is also a third language. So it's not just like the second language, it's like the comedy of that language.
Right. It's a fourth language.
Exactly. And what I hope that I will have or achieve is maybe have my own break into the circle of American media, because people like me are not really represented. I know that a lot of people, you represent them. We have people like Aziz Ansari and Hassan Mahesh, like with all due respect.
And like
those
the two or three others. Right?
But even the two or three others, they are Pakistanis or Indians.
Right, exactly.
And they actually have more of an American point of view because they were born here. I'm practically fresh off the boat. I just came from that region that everybody is talking about and have a problem with. And there's nobody speaking to those kind of people.
You're not removed from it at all.
I just came there. I was not born here. I was not raised here. I don't have an American point of view. I have a true outsider point of view. So once there were a comedy night where they had all Arab Americans, and then it was my turn. It's like, guys, I'm the only real Arab here.
Seriously, like there's no hyphen here.
All of those people that were born here, and I was joking because like making fun of
course,
my colleagues, but it is that kind of a point of view is totally missing, and this is why I find people from really weird backgrounds, ethnicities, and nationalities playing the roles of my people. I'm here.
Of course, literally.
So maybe there's like a way to kind of like get that voice across into the American media circles. Whether there's a podcast, maybe there's some sort of an executive who will say, "Oh, maybe you can host a show, or maybe you could be on a show." So that's what I'm kind of trying to reach or attain in the next stage of my career here.
How have you found executives aside? Because executives, I mean, they're all monsters, but not you specifically, Bob. But there's no Bob. But have you found audiences receptive? Like, have you found?
Yeah, the audience
like,
is receptive.
are they as eager to hear this perspective, or do you have to make them laugh first and then get them there?
No, actually, the audience are very curious. But the idea about the executives, the whole idea about like the gatekeepers and the people,
course, yes.
and there's a lot of competition. Yeah, right now there's a lot of like outlets, and yet there's a lot of competition, and it's even a competition between people who have been born and raised here. So I understand it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
I don't expect the doors to like fly open, and you just need to work on your stuff, improve it, work on yourself. And something gotta give, hopefully.
Do you feel yourself getting better? Like, do you?
Yes.
Like, this is what people always talk about comedy. I can't. It seems to me the hardest thing in the world.
It is.
Like, I just can't even imagine it. And do you feel like getting your muscles in shape that regard? Do you feel like you're turning a corner on that?
So right now I'm having this comedy residency at Joe's Pub at the Public Theater, and I can feel, and people can feel the difference from one show to the other, night after night. You're getting more comfortable, you're getting more physical, you're getting more confident with everything that you're saying. And I think it's very important. That was like a wonderful opportunity to work on that, because it is a place for people to work on new material. Mm-hmm. So I came in with like so many new stuff, and bit by bit it becomes part of you. Yeah. You say it 100 times, you say it more and more, you find new ways to say it, you find better ways to say it. So it's kind of like now I'm more in tune with the material, and so yes, I'm feeling a little bit better.
And it feels like comedy itself is starting to change. Like, to me, the Nanette Netflix comedy special, for a lot, I think has opened a lot of eyes, not just in like different voices in comedy, but what actually a comedy show is. Like, it doesn't actually have to be like set up joke, and or I'm making fun of that person in the audience, or that sort of things. Do you feel like that's kind of freeing in a way? Like, when you're putting together your set and you're putting together what you're doing, do you feel almost like kind of like liberated because you can make it entirely what you want, or do you worry that like, wow, I can make this entirely what I want? That could be very scary.
So because I'm not a seasoned stand-up comedian, because I don't belong into that field, I kind of like, as you said, I can do whatever I want. Yeah. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Right. And I can actually talk to people for a while about something that is deep and thoughtful, and they get their attention. Then I can release the tension with a joke that actually will bring it home. And sometimes it is still very funny, but the jokes itself means something much deeper, because I'm not used to the setup punchline.
Of course.
I'm more of like, oh, let's talk about this idea and bring it to life.
Yeah, see, that's good. Like, that seems to me the direction that this is going.
Yes.
So that's a positive thing.
Yes.
So, well, I hang in because it does feel like it does. And honestly, in all seriousness, I listen to the podcast. I'm like, okay, it's hard. 10 years ago, I think it would have been harder, to be honest. And now it does feel like there is just a different understanding and people are just more open to this than they would have been 10 years ago.
And they want something to be more satisfying and more substantial, not just like an easy laugh.
Yes, well, fortunately, I have nothing substantial or no easy laughs, so I'm 0 for 2. But we're going to play a game. We'll do my question. We do this thing we call frivolous questions of dubious import. Okay? So some of you can answer quick answers, you can answer long answers, whatever you feel, just whatever's in your heart or your soul, whatever's closer to your mouth. Okay, question number 1. You have 10 million Twitter followers. You have more Twitter followers than Mo Salah. Does this mean that you are more famous and beloved than Mo Salah?
Absolutely not. Mo Salah is much more famous and much more loved, and he's more famous worldwide because he speaks an international language. He doesn't even have to speak.
Right. It helps when you can run around and kick.
But it's not just because he's skillful.
Right.
He is very humble, very lovable. There's a lot of skillful and very talented players out there, but it's not just the skill or the talent, it's his journey, where he came from, and how gracious he is and generous he is, and how wonderful of a human being he is.
So do you think Egypt, with the World Cup just ended, it was frustrating for, at least you were there, unlike some countries. Do you think Egypt could ever win a World Cup? Do you think that is there any path at all?
There's a lot of problems with the Egyptian sports more than just like having a good team.
Right, good team, right.
And whatever political problems that you have, it will reflect on the management of that team. So I think there's a lot to do in that. Still.
So Bob Bradley wasn't going to fix it.
No, well, I just think I think the best. I know that you talk about Bob Bradley because he's American, but
yes.
I think our best coach that we ever had, it was between 2004 2010. He was Hassan Shahata. He was an Egyptian team, and he made us win 3 African Cup in back-to-back. Never happened before. And but we missed the World Cup. But I think he was one of the best coaches he ever coached.
I knew it wasn't Bob Bradley.
But Bob Bradley did a good job.
He did fine. He did fine. He did
good. But he also came in a very, very difficult times right after the Arab Spring, and it was very difficult. Yeah.
So, I didn't think it was Bob Bradley. He wasn't the best American coach either. Okay, I forgive me. This is a question from a very ignorant place, which you're probably not going to come as a major surprise to you. Now, I legitimately don't understand the difference between handball and squash. What is the difference between handball and squash? Can you tell me?
Yeah, squash is
what is the difference?
Squash is like racquetball, but for the elite. And handball is just basketball with goal.
Okay, so what's the difference between squash and racquetball?
Oh,
that's it. Even my ignorant question was ignorant.
No, because racquetball is just like the ball is heavier, the rackets are heavier. Squash is much faster and much more skillful.
Okay, so
racquetball is not a real sport.
So, like, if someone's really good at racquetball, do they get like promoted to squash?
No, no.
Okay.
If someone is really good at squash, he can play racquetball, but not the other.
Not the other way. Okay, good. Okay, that makes sense. Okay,
yes.
Thank you for that.
Because like 8 out of the top 10 or 7 out of the top 10 players in the world are Egyptian.
I know.
Yes.
So I figured you would know.
Yeah,
I figured I could, because I can't ask someone from like Boise. Nobody knows. So thank you. Okay, which is harder? Legitimate question. Past life or being blacklisted by the Egyptian government or trying to make it as an actor and comedian in Los Angeles?
Making it as an actor in Los Angeles.
It is hard.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yes. Seems like getting blacklisted just kind of happens like that.
Yeah, it's like everybody. Everybody is blacklisted. It's like, are you on the list? Yes, I'm on the list.
Which is harder?
Which list? The blacklist.
Which is harder for you emotionally?
Emotionally, I have to say being an actor, because like if you are blacklisted somewhere, you can always move.
Yes.
But if it's harder to actually get into a certain kind of career, that's your livelihood. Yeah. That's like kind of something happened in the past, and something is more happening in the future.
And it's constant rejection too.
Yes,
A blacklisting is just one rejection. So.
And it's not a rejection. It's more of a badge of honor.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like
I got it, baby.
I have to say, I feel like if you're not getting blasted by the Egyptian government, you are definitely doing something, probably many things wrong. Do you think satire is easier to do in the United States? Or
yes, because satire is settled law. But like here's the thing: satire is easier in the United States as it's safer.
Right.
But it is more difficult with the current president because you can't really up that. It's just
it's just that satire.
How can you?
It's unsaid. Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the thing.
It's just like it's becoming too ridiculous. I don't know like where people will go. It's like all right, cool. Another joke about him.
It's just like just put a camera on him and there's nothing.
Yeah.
It's the idea of it's the whole idea of fiction against reality. Like fiction can never truly top reality. Do you find, as someone that's done satire and has worked in this field, like do you? Are you? Can you imagine that challenge? Like I see all these people with talk shows now, that like political talk shows, and I feel like all they're doing is just being like, "Look at this guy."
Yeah.
Like what more can you really do in that regard?
Yeah, well, that's why it kind of like the people who are doing a better job is more they dig deeper into like that joke.
Right.
So it's not like the joke. It's kind of like, all right, let's take this joke and kind of like give it something that more meaning for the audience.
Which brings me to my next question. Who do you actually think is doing the best talk show in America right now, other than obviously me?
Of course, the Will Leitch Show is the best talk show in America, but I really like Colbert, and I like Trevor, and I like John Oliver a lot. I think they're doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, I feel like John Oliver. I was thinking of John Oliver when he talked about the idea of like you can make fun of it, but then you go
deeper.
You go deeper.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like a magazine rather than a newspaper. Or
yes.
Or blog. Do you think Jon Stewart should come back?
Only if he wants to.
Only if he wants to.
Because I've seen him in the last couple of years before he retired, and I know that he was like that was putting a lot of pressure on him as a person, and I think it was like it was time for him kind of like to take a break.
Well, I wonder about that because there is obviously, like, I think you can make an argument that he's kind of the American you in the idea that, like, you become something, like, you couldn't just do comedy anymore. Like, his thing was he couldn't, like, he was becoming such a figure and such a polarizing figure to a certain side that, like, just doing comedy felt like almost inadequate.
But I think he mentioned that, he talked about that. I think Trevor Noah talked about that, is that he said that the show was becoming, for him, was not funny anymore.
Yeah.
It was making him angry.
Yeah.
He was too emotionally involved into that.
And then right after he left, Trump came. So
Yes. Yeah.
probably a good idea. Okay, we ask every guest this question. Forgive me, but I was wondering, anytime you ever doing a show, did you ever have Bob Costas, the broadcaster, was doing the Olympics, and he had pink eye, and he went out every single day, like a trooper.
Yes.
And went out every time. Did you ever get stuck with pink eye on a show?
Didn't he have teardrops or like
Yeah,
eye drops?
apparently not enough. Apparently not. But yeah,
Wow.
you got to admire the professionalism.
I admire him, but like I didn't have to go through that.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you didn't have to do that. Can you imagine, I mean, I look around the world and I look around the United States, I get frankly a little scared and what's going on. Can you imagine the sort of censorship and blacklisting that you saw in Egypt happening here?
I know, I don't think so. I don't think it will happen anytime soon. I mean, first of all, never say never.
Right.
However, I think there is still a very long way to go because people are kind of living in the moment. Oh my God, what's going to happen? But there are midterms around the corner.
Right.
And there are like presidential elections,
There are actual ways.
So there's a way, actually to actually change that.
For now.
For now, but like the problem with America, American democracy is not just like the government shutting you down. Is whoever gets the money, have the control, what gets aired and what's not. And we have seen that with Sinclair, with the local channels. And I just like wonder how strong would the money is, and what happened if the power of money shifts into the other kind of the other hands.
Right. If Air America takes over Republican radio, that idea. Okay, if I ask you to right now, could you actually perform surgery? Could you, if I we clean you up, and then scrub you up and everything. But could you, like, if
I can do some stuff.
You can do it.
I can do.
Okay, well, bring it. No, just kidding. We don't actually have anyone. Okay, and my last question before we get into the game. As an American, I have to tell you, I'm freaking out about everything right now. Am I overreacting?
No, I don't think you are. Because here's the thing.
Okay, now I need you to perform surgery.
No. Here's what I think. I mean, you are in a much better shape than you guys think. But here's the thing. I think being stressed or freaking out or actually wanting a better service is something that you earned in this kind of democracy. So you cannot say, oh, be grateful because look at the rest of the world. It's like you going into a restaurant and you paid, it's like a very expensive restaurant, and you paid for the service, and the food tastes really horrible. Right. And people say, you should be thankful because there are people in Africa that can't find food. You tell them, I'm not in Africa and I paid for that. So you should be worried. Yes.
Okay.
It's just like it's kind of like the freaking out for you're seeking a better service.
Right. Well, now I feel terrified and like a spoiled brat.
Yes.
So that's I should probably use to that as well. Okay, we have a game. Speaking of, we have a game called Mock Doctor. Okay. Mock Doctor. What I'm going to ask you is if someone, it's one of our crew here, if one of them just collapsed and fell over, which of the following celebrity doctors do you think would actually be able to help them? Okay?
Okay.
Number one, Dr. Ben Carson. Could Dr. Ben Carson help if the Secretary of HUD, could he help someone, in your opinion, as a professional doctor, could he help someone if someone fell over on the ground right now?
Practically, I say yes, but emotionally, I cannot actually root for this guy.
Yeah. You'd be like, you know what? I want you to survive if they were a nice doctor. Maybe they can save them and then he can punch them or something. Okay. Question number two: Dr. Oz. Could Dr. Oz actually help a person who collapsed on the ground right now?
I think Dr. Oz will talk to one of his sponsors, and we get like a magic pill. And they give it to them.
And it would not help.
Yes. Maybe we'll give them like a weight loss pill. Or something.
Exactly.
Yes.
Death will make you lose weight. Question number three, Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew. Could Dr. Drew, if one of the staffers collapse right now, could Dr. Drew?
I think he can. Yeah. I think he can. I mean, he looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he exudes confidence.
Okay.
He's
I
like-
needed a more medical. That's the last thing I want to hear from you. Like, oh, this nurse is totally going to help you. She exudes confidence. Or he exudes confidence, for that matter. Okay, before Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Dr. Sanjay
Yes,
Gupta.
absolutely.
Yeah, he's awesome. He can totally help me.
Yes, yes.
And make me feel better.
Yes.
As well.
And someone who has succeeded can do anything.
Yes, yes. Dr. Dre. Do you think Dr. Dre would be of any help?
He can bring his posse. He
Yeah,
can bring. Yeah, he can
would
bring.
help.
I kind of like beat people up
Yeah.
and kind of clear the.
And he has a lot of people under his employ.
Yeah.
I imagine one of them would know basic.
I think he's rich enough to bring like a private jet or
Yeah,
a private
someone-
helicopter
he
to
gets
bring them.
somebody.
Yes.
All right, good. Thank you, Dr. Dre. And the last question, Dr. Phil. Do you think Dr. Phil would be of any use in an emergency situation?
There's no use at all.
Yeah, I don't think he has any use in any situation.
In any situation. No, I don't think so. No.
Or otherwise. Okay, the last thing we do, we have a game we call, very quickly, it's 30 seconds on the clock. We do a game called How Many Questions Can You Get Right on this show that you're on with Will right now?
Damn.
It's such a hard title, I think I just got it wrong again from like
Okay.
the 17th straight show. It's basically like the game Outburst. It's like Family Feud played very quickly. If I were
Okay.
to say, for example, U.S. states, you would just name as many U.S. states as you could
All right.
in 30 seconds, okay? So the category is current on-the-air talk show hosts. Current on-the-air talk show hosts. 30 seconds on the clock. There's someone, by the way, if you feel any pressure on this, there's
So you want me to just like mention?
just say their names. And there's no wrong answer. I mean, there are wrong answers, but you won't be punished for a wrong answer.
Okay.
So if you said, say, Al Jolson, that would be incorrect.
All right.
Okay, but you wouldn't cost you any points.
All right, cool.
Okay, so 30 seconds on the clock. Go.
Sam B, John Oliver,
yes.
Trevor Noah,
Yes.
not Bill O'Reilly, Carson, Alex Jones.
Yes,
yeah, you know.
Went to a dark place.
Jimmy Fallon,
Yes.
Jimmy Kimmel, Gordon, The Gordon Show, Amanpour,
Oh, yep.
Don Lemon,
Five.
Comey, what else?
That was amazing. I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
actually you and Thomas Jones, the running back, absolutely nailed it. Thank you very much. That was very well done.
Okay.
I've had people who actually were on the list themselves and not named themselves before. So you nailed all sorts of people that are not, in fact, you. Sir, very much. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
And the show is remade in America, and you're just finishing up your residency at Joe's, back to Los Angeles. For crying out loud, executives, hire this person right now. He is awesome. Is Bassem Youssef, by all means. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Very much. Everyone, get this guy, listen to this guy's podcast. Give him everything that he needs. He is the best. Anyway, so this has been the Will Leitch Show. Please come back to SITV or wherever your Will Leitches are sold for more digital entertainment.